This is 5.
This is why I had such a crappy
Hold on.
SAT score.
Okay, we're close. Then we pour 3, and we're left with 2, right?
2. I'm gonna feel so stupid.
So, hold on. There is a solution, right?
See, I think
So does it?
these are the kinds of
They're going to
things
take
that-
away my degree once this airs.
Hi, I'm Jesse Birch, and this is You're Better Than Me. My guest today is Mayim Bialik, who's
Hi.
one of the stars of Big Bang Theory. She's also a twice published author. She's a mother of 2. She is also a doctor of neuroscience. Let's see, what else do I have? She is also the founder of the culture site groknation.com. She is also a certified lactation consultant.
Educator counselor.
Educator counselor.
Right, yes.
And
That's it. That's all I can be.
well, it's all better than me. Thank you very much for being here on the show. How do you find the time to do all? Well, you didn't do it all at once.
Exactly.
Why neuroscience?
Okay.
Because you were a child actor.
Right.
You were the young Bette Midler in Beaches.
Right. That
and
came out when
then-
I was 13.
And you had the television show Blossom as a
Right.
child.
From the time I was 14 to 19.
But then you decided to stop for a bit.
Yeah, I left the industry for 12 years. So when Blossom ended, I was 19. And I had fallen in love with science in high school, as some people do. And I studied neuroscience for 5 years. I did an undergraduate degree also in Hebrew and Jewish studies. And then I went straight to a PhD program also in neuroscience. I really fell in love in particular with the properties of the neuron and the electrophysiology of the nervous system. And I ended up I studied obsessive compulsive disorder and the hormones that may or may not have a role in obsessive compulsive disorder. Those hormones being oxytocin and vasopressin, which are also important for labor and orgasm and birth and breastfeeding.
Was that intended to be your fallback position, or had you always intended to go back to acting?
Many of us sometimes forget that sitcoms in the 1990s did not place you in a wonderful place in our industry. When Blossom ended, I pretty much had already been typecast, for so many years in the public eye. It was seen as kind of a good idea to take a little bit of a break and grow up and let the industry forget a little who I was as Blossom. I started acting when I was 11 because I liked school plays. I was not planning on a career as an actor. I was considered a late bloomer for a child actor because most start when they're 2 or 3. So I really kind of felt like I accidentally walked into having my own TV show when I was 14. It wasn't like that was my life plan. And my grandparents are immigrants. I come from a very old-fashioned Jewish immigrant kind of mentality of like, go to college, do something in the world, repair the world, be a person who walks in the image of God. Like I come from that kind of background. So for me, being an actor didn't really feel like that was the pinnacle of my existence. I wanted to do other things and be out in the world.
I actually found your doctoral thesis.
Oh, the abstract?
Online.
Yeah.
And I did not understand a word of it because, but I am curious what you found. To what degree do oxytocin and
So vasopressin.
I read it right there.
Very nice.
To what degree do they affect
So
obsessive compulsive
the
disorder?
thing about doctoral research is it's mostly exploratory. Typically, you're not working with a large enough sample set, meaning enough blood, to be able to definitively say, I discovered something.
Sure.
So sometimes you'll hear stories of people who, in their doctoral thesis find something unbelievable and they get the, cover of Nature Neuroscience and their career is set.
I subscribe to that.
I found that there were some associations between certain hormones and certain aspects of obsessions and compulsions, but nothing to write home about, as it were.
Okay.
This is the kind of thing that if I had continued in this field, if I had done a postdoc, if I hadn't had an infant shortly after filing for my thesis, that I might have continued and gotten a larger sample set. So there was enough to indicate that there is more research to do, and there are other people working in this field. But the point of a doctoral thesis is to do novel research. It's sometimes exploratory, and also to kind of hone your research skills, which is what I got to do.
Tell me you got an A.
You don't really get an A. It's like a pass, no pass kind of
That sucks.
situation.
I'm actually curious about the other work that you did in school as well. Your work in Judaism and Hebrew studies.
Right.
Were you raised fairly religiously?
I was raised traditionally. My mother was raised very religious, and often that leads to not wanting to raise children religiously.
Sometimes.
So my mom had a pretty negative experience as an Orthodox Jew, as a first-generation American, not because of Judaism or Orthodoxy, but because her parents were immigrants and they were uneducated. You know, they worked in sweatshops and life was hard. She associated a lot of those things with Judaism and Orthodoxy. And so we sort of had remnants of Orthodoxy, but not full explanation or really like love of learning and things like that. But we had a traditional house in that we observed all the holidays. We went to synagogue. I went to Reform Hebrew school, which is sort of the most liberal and progressive of the branches of Judaism. I went to Jewish camp on scholarship, which I'm really grateful that there are people who donate money for those of us, you know, who grew up not being able to afford Jewish summer camp, which is, you know, for some Jews a very quintessential, you know, kind of experience.
Yes.
And I was raised with a very strong notion of my Jewishness and my ethnic distinctiveness and uniqueness, while also being aware that Jews are 2% of the US population and we operate in a world of all sorts of people. So there are universal aspects also, both to being human and to being religious, that I was also encouraged to understand.
To what degree are you practicing? Would you call yourself conservative Orthodox, Reformadox? And how do you, and then it's a two-parter, then, how do you sort of make room for it in Hollywood?
Right.
Tapings and rehearsals and
Right.
things like that, because there is so much ritual.
Right. The branch of Judaism that I most resonate with philosophically and in terms of ritual and practice would be modern Orthodoxy. Some people are calling themselves post-denominational Jews in the community that I revolve in, which obviously sounds very floofy and LA and crazy. But the thing that I like about it is that, you know, I'm a person who can sit in any kind of synagogue and have an experience. You know, there's a synagogue called Ikar here in LA, which is very progressive and politically and socially justice minded. And, you know, there's a lot of like drumming and it's very intense, but the praying is very traditional. Sometimes I like that. And sometimes I like to sit separate from men and have a really quiet, quick service and kind of be in and out. And sometimes I like to go to a Reform synagogue and hear the songs I grew up with on a guitar and an organ. I do often have to work on religious holidays because sometimes holidays like Shavuot, or I call it Shavuos, and Sukkot fall right in the middle of the week. And some people at work don't even know what those holidays are, but they are very holy religious days. So I find ways to celebrate, to not drive myself, or to wear like nicer clothes to work, even if it's just a rehearsal day, or to not use my phone or my computer on those days so that I can create religious distinctions for myself. We tape on Tuesday nights. A lot of shows tape on Friday nights, but I sort of got lucky. I wish I had enough power to say, I will not tape on Shabbat.
I wondered, because I noticed
no, it's just a happy coincidence.
Good.
It's a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are a lot of Jews in Hollywood. It's
Sure.
just true, but there are not a lot of observant Jews in Hollywood. And one of the hardest things about being observant-ish, which is usually what I call myself, is that, you know, the calendar of Hollywood, it doesn't really care, and it really shouldn't, you know? It's, that's not the place that I go to fulfill my religious obligations, is to be an actor or to really operate in the industry. And there are people like David Sachs, there are people who do it, you know, who are actively in the industry and actively religious, but you have to have a lot of control. Sacha Baron Cohen, you know, eats kosher and he does not work on the Sabbath and things like that, but he's also in charge of everything. I'm not in charge of everything. I'm in charge of everything in my house. That's the only place I have control.
Well, I mean, yeah, give it time. But on Grok Nation, there was some mention that one of the subjects was maintaining modesty in Hollywood, and I wondered if that has something to do with your religious observance or just a personal choice?
Yes, for me, there are certain guidelines for not only how we dress, but how we behave. And those guidelines actually exist for men and women. In traditional Judaism, a lot of attention gets put on women because there's more things, you know. There are women who cover their head, you know, they wear a wig or a hat. As a feminist, I actually found it very empowering, this notion of having a distinct amount of control over what my body looks like and how I present it. And as I got more and more in the public eye, it became more and more startling to me how much attention you get for not wearing much clothing and how much of an emphasis the fashion world and the publicity world puts on women being sexual beings, even if they are actors. And I understand if you're a model and you're putting yourself out there as, a place to put clothing or hair or makeup,
Sure.
I understand that. But for me, as an educated woman and as a woman who makes my living as an employed actor, I don't like the notion that I also have to compete or place myself in that category or look as skinny and sexy as possible at all times and show all those parts of myself. So while there are many women who don't feel empowered by rules of modesty, for me, it's actually really special that there are parts of me that are saved for the people I am most intimate with. And I get to find creative ways and creative people who are willing to dress me, because I don't wear sleeveless dresses and I don't wear anything above the knee. I don't wear pants. I have not worn pants in many years in public. I wear pants at home. But
Not
yeah.
on the show, so...
No. Amy Farrah Fowler.
Amy Farrah Fowler is not a pants wearer.
So she wore a short Star Trek dress with tights. They let me wear tights under it in one kind of quick kind of dream episode. Right. And I've always had people say, well, what if you played someone who had to climb a telephone pole? I said, then I guess I'd wear pants. But no one's asking me to climb a telephone pole. But on the red carpet and things like that, there's a lot more pressure. And I have had people say, I can't dress you, you're too big. At a size 6, 4, but usually 6. I'm very, very large for the carpet. I know, and it's hard because much as I know many women who are size 6s and above who are gorgeous and sexy and confident and fantastic, my personality is such that I feel very self-conscious when I am the largest woman by 3 sizes on the red carpet, and that happens a lot. I'm getting better at handling it. I know there are things that are wonderful about me and that people appreciate about me, but it never feels good to feel that different, especially when the average woman in the United States is, size, I think 12, 14, normal size.
To be under that kind of scrutiny all the time has got to be a lot of pressure and a lot of, like a weight to carry.
And men experience it too.
Of course.
But not as much.
But not as much, not as much. And so how do you, do you ever, are you ever in a situation where
I've left things crying.
Yeah,
that happens. It's a thing. So sometimes I make briefer appearances at things than I might if I was more comfortable. And I'm aware, that a lot of it is me working on myself and being confident. But, I'll be super honest.
Please.
I think it's disingenuous for people to say you have to love yourself before anyone else can love you. Because sometimes everybody's got a different personality, and I'm a pretty delicate, insecure, kind of person. I'm a snowflake, everybody's been hurling that insult at me. I'm kind of a snowflake. So I used to Google myself, and I have not Googled myself in years. It's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. People say really horrible things, and it's one of the wonderful reasons not to allow my children to have unsupervised time on the computer.
Yeah.
Because it would be devastating for them and me if they ever were to see some of the mean, prickly things that people say behind the veil of the internet.
Yeah. Talk to me, because your first book, Beyond the Sling, right, is about attachment parenting.
Correct. It was about my experiences with attachment parenting. I can't speak to the whole world.
All of the attachment parenting. But you were a big proponent of this. Talk to me about, why did you decide to?
So I decided to parent this way because when I was in graduate school, which is when I had my first son, who's now 11, I was learning about neurodevelopment and the way humans. Well, the way humans.
I tease. I'm not.
But that's
I'm
part of.
It's not,
but that's part of what we study is how humans get to be this way and why, and we learn about how other primates do things. And because I studied oxytocin and vasopressin, I got to learn a lot about those hormones and their roles in bonding and just normal primate physiology. So for me and Mike, my now ex, but then we were married, we felt that the principles of attachment parenting were very consistent with evolutionarily the way primates parent for many good reasons. While there's not an attachment parenting police force, there are things that many people who like attachment parenting tend to investigate and pursue. Things like unmedicated births, things like breastfeeding, things like wearing your baby or keeping your baby close rather than moving them away, having a consistent primary caregiver, which in many cases is the mother if you're breastfeeding, but doesn't always have to be. One of the most universal things that you'll find in attachment parents, whether they had a scheduled C-section, didn't breastfeed, is gentle discipline, which is one of the main principles of attachment parenting. The notion that there are many ways to discipline a child without threats and punishment and physical methods. I don't want to say physical abuse because I'm not trying to be political about it, but if you're going to pick one thing that almost everyone who says, I like attachment parenting will do, it would be gentle discipline. And that's something that continues once they're no longer breastfeeding, once they're out of your bed and all those things. Some people who practice attachment parenting bed share, which means sharing safely, sharing a sleeping surface with a child. Some people do what's called co-sleeping, which means having a baby near you, meaning in the room or sometimes in an attachment. But not everybody does that. In a drawer. No, not in a drawer. That would be an unsafe way to sleep near your child. So that's really what the book was. It was what it was like in our house to sleep together, what it was like in our house to breastfeed for a very long time.
Was there any overlap when you were attachment parenting and filming? Or had you started that yet?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I did not do a postdoc, which is usually a 1 or 2 year commitment after your doctorate degree, was because I had a toddler and was pregnant with my second when I filed for my thesis. So I was able to be the at-home, pretty much 24/7 parent for both of my kids for the formative first years of their life. I returned to acting really because I was running out of health insurance and figured if I get I just need 1 or 2 jobs, even small jobs, to get Screen Actors Guild health insurance, which is very good. And Mike was at UCLA also. He was a graduate student, so we didn't have a lot of funds. We were just trying to figure life out. So I went back to auditioning when my younger son was about 1, and I would breastfeed him and run into an audition with Mike and the toddler in the car. It was crazy. There were many auditions where I must not have been able to do very well at all because I was literally worrying about the screaming infant in the car. But I was not hired on Big Bang Theory until he was about 1.5, and I wasn't made a regular till he was over 2. I happened to be breastfeeding still, so I was a pumping breastfeeding mom for, a whole other year at Big Bang Theory, and then I stopped pumping in the day, and he still got to nurse at night and all that stuff.
I'm sure you have opinions on this, because, and I know I do. Why do you think that breastfeeding is such an issue?
Yeah.
What is the hang-up? Because, and I'm talking about mostly public breastfeeding.
Sure. Right. Well, I think we're still in the middle of a little bit of, I don't like to say the phrase mommy wars, but I say it with the intentionality of it being an annoying phrase. The personality of our generation is still very, I did it my way and don't tell me there's anything wrong with it. And so we're seeing a lot of this tension surrounding birth and breastfeeding and this notion of don't tell me I didn't have an ideal birth, it had to go the way it went. And all those things can be true with people still having different ways to do things. And the issue, the secondary issue, is that for sure in this country we're obsessed with breasts and we're obsessed with women, but we don't see breastfeeding as a natural extension of women the way we should. And I happen to be a person who doesn't think everyone needs to look at my breasts. However, if I have a screaming child and the most efficient and best for all solution is to breastfeed that child, I'm not going to be primarily interested in how much of my nipple might show as I'm putting my child to my breast. I happened to use, nursing clothing and blankets and things like that. And I really do, kind of bristle a little bit when women say you should be fine looking at my breasts. That's not true for everyone. Some men and some women are not that comfortable, but they can look away. And the fact is, if you can give your kid a bottle in public, I can feed my kid in public with my body. My children see more breasts just driving down Sunset Boulevard on billboards and people standing on the street than most children do, in a year in terms of breastfeeding.
I don't look at those things because I'm married.
It's best not to. But I think those are different concepts of modesty, again, that are confusing sort of, where's the gaze? What's the purpose of the gaze? Yeah. And a lot of the sort of religious structure for me of modesty is about what kind of gaze you're giving me and what I want to show.
You were the leader at UCLA of a Rosh Chodesh group.
That's right. Rosh Chodesh is the new moon, which happens once a month. Yeah.
Now I know a fair.
Never expected you to ask me about Rosh Chodesh.
I was
put it out there.
Okay, well,
very pleasantly surprised.
I hope
right
it's
now.
okay. But anyway,
Can't wait to see what somebody else has.
I'm actually really curious because I know a fair bit about Jewish holidays. I do know a couple things. But I never actually heard of that holiday.
Yeah.
And I read about it, and I was actually curious. What is the difference officially between Rosh Chodesh and just
the regular new moon?
Shabbat?
Oh, so Rosh Chodesh is the first sliver of moon that you see every month.
Right.
So the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar.
It's a lunar calendar.
Right. So we have weird, funky things. We've got like a weird leap year that has to happen.
Yeah,
there are certain years where we have two spring months. Like
sometimes Hanukkah is on Christmas
exactly.
Eve.
Sometimes it's on Thanksgiving.
Sometimes it's on Thanksgiving.
That's because we're lunar and we have a correction, a solar correction, we call it, as it were. So Rosh Chodesh in Orthodox communities is typically celebrated as a day off for girls from religious school.
Yeah, that's what I read.
So the notion being that just as the sun sort of powers the day, that's seen as a more masculine set of qualities, meaning the public world. And historically, women were seen to rule the inner circles of life, meaning the home. So they are sort of likened to the moon. So whereas men rule sort of the public day sphere, women rule the night. So the moon also echoes women's menstrual cycles because our cycle is lunar. So Rosh Chodesh has been reclaimed in the 70s as a sort of feminist celebration of the female power in Judaism. And what I did, I started this group with a friend of mine at UCLA, and we would get a bunch of undergraduates together and we would pick a theme that usually related to the season or a Jewish holiday or something going on in the modern world. And we would talk and connect in ways that people who go to 12-step programs or go to church or a synagogue might experience. But we were experiencing it not really on a religious level. It had a religious basis, but it was more an opportunity for students to connect and honestly like talk about feelings when a lot of us aren't encouraged to sort of enter college and find people to talk about feelings with.
My producer has a word puzzle for you because you're much smarter than I am.
Is it like a Mensa thing?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
it's for both of you.
and we're going to see if I can just ask it because I'm not going to be able to figure it out.
I'm excited.
Okay,
I like puzzles.
So you might know
figured
this
you
one. If you
did.
know this one, we'll get a different one. But you have a
Okay, go.
You have a 3-gallon jug and a 5-gallon jug and a scale, and you need to put 4 gallons of water onto the scale, and you have an endless supply of water. How do you do it?
Hang on, I'm drawing a jug.
Yeah, so you can't use the scale as a way to measure it because if you put it on the scale without it being 4 gallons.
I have kind of a complicated solution. I'll give you a second.
Don't bother. You want a hint?
I know the solution.
I just started. I mean, I don't know how much tape you've got here.
I'm just kidding. I
digital,
don't
we're
have
fine.
any idea how to do this. The 5-gallon jug is full of water. Wait a minute.
Okay,
And you
full of water.
pour it into the empty 3-gallon jug, leaving only 2 gallons of water.
And then what? Can you do that twice?
Fine out.
How would you do it twice?
Ah, I see. This is the problem.
You got a full 5-gallon jug
Full
of water.
5-gallon jug. Then we pour 3, and we're left with 2, right?
2. You're the neuroscientist.
Hold on. This is not. They don't teach you this. Wait for it. Do the jugs have the same diameter? Because if they do, you just fill the 5 up so that it's equal to the 2, and that's 4.
Gotta be precise.
Yeah, or it's gonna blow up.
Then why aren't there lines on it?
Exactly.
If you fill up the 5, pour 1 into the 3, there will be 4 left in the 5.
Yay!
Oh, man.
Do you understand that, Jesse?
Nope.
You want to explain it to him?
No, they'll
Nope.
take away my degree if I can't explain it to him. Okay.
All right, so
this is the 5 and this is the 3. Let's fill up the 5, right? Right?
it's all filled up.
All
and
filled
you put
up.
That into the
and we're going to
3.
pour it into here.
Okay.
So that leads to, then we have a 5, and we have, so if the 3 is full,
And the 5 has only 2.
the 5 has only 2, right?
Great.
Because 2 plus 3, right,
Good. How
is
the
5.
hell
Great.
now?
So there's 2 in here. What did we do? Did we empty out the 3? Yeah, we emptied out the 3, right? So empty it out.
And now you've only got 2
Hold
in
on,
there.
hold on.
Okay. Okay.
Then what we're gonna do, is we're going to, wait, oh my gosh, hold on.
You had it.
This is empty.
Yes.
This is 2.
All the water's gone.
All right, here we go. This is it. We have to pour the 2 into the 3. There we go. Okay, we're gonna pour the 2 into the 3, right?
Okay. But where do you get the 1?
Hold on 1 second. What's missing from the 3 is 1. You know that 5 minus 1 is 4, so if you spill out enough from here to fill this up, what will be left here is 4. Hold on, we're close. Do you understand that this is full, and this is 5, right?
I totally got it. I got that much.
And we filled this with 2, remember? Mm-hmm. Remember? We filled it with 2?
Oh, yeah.
No, I remember.
Okay, so you remember how we got here?
Yeah, that was so good.
If you were to fill this 3, how much would you need?
Okay.
What's missing from the 3 to make it 3?
1.
1.
Right.
And this is full. So I'm gonna pour from this until this is full. There's 5. If I pour 1, it becomes...
Right, and that becomes 4! Yes! Yes, I understand it. So, just wait, just so
Okay.
I get it so tenuously.
I know, right. Say it again. You gotta say it again. So this.
No, I got it.
This,
So you poured the 5, you poured the whole thing into the 3, you left 2 there. Then you
There's
tossed
2.
that out.
Exactly.
Then you poured the remainder
the 2
in
into
there.
the 3.
Then
you know that what's missing is only 1.
Then you fill this up to 5.
Yes.
And you pour that
1.
Fill it up into the 1 and
And
then
5
get
minus
4! Yes! Oh,
You got it.
Which, you're still a neuroscientist, and I'm not. I want to thank you for being here and letting me talk to you
You're
today.
welcome.
I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it. Thank you. You are so much better than me, as this evidences.